two of the loudest numbers in this market, the funding headline when you raise and the IPO pipeline when you want out, are both unreliable. The total goes up. The number of companies actually getting funded does not. We've got a large portion going into the data centers, the hardware. When you raise, the headline lies. It is inflated by a handful of checks you will never be part of. And the only number that tells you the truth is your own margin. Start with two numbers from this month and a question. Number one, in May, startups in this region raised $472 million, more than double what they raised in April. Number two, that doubling was built almost entirely on two checks. Take those two out, and May was thin, still down on the year before. So here's the question I want to sit inside for the next half hour while we run this episode. When you're a founder in Kuala Lumpur or Bangkok or Manila, which numbers are actually telling you the truth? Because two of the loudest numbers in this market, the funding headline when you raise and the IPO pipeline when you want out, are both unreliable. And they're unreliable in different ways. The money coming in is inflated. The money going out is uneven. And in between, there's a real company, your company, trying to make decisions on top of figures that flatter and figures that lie. I'm Kevin Brocklin, managing partner of Indelible Ventures. This is Sea of Startups. And today, the Mirage and the fork in the road. Let's go with this episode. So let's start with this concept of the Mirage, so start with that funding rebound, because it is a perfect little lie. Not a dishonest one, a statistically true one, which is worse because it is harder to argue with. May 2026, $472 million across 31 deals. That was the Deal Street Asia report number that I saw come out last week. And it was up 104% on April. The kind of line that gets screenshotted into a pitch deck by Tuesday. But if you look underneath that number, that jump came from the return of mega deals. Transactions worth $100 million or more. You had a data center included in there. You had an AI hardware platform included in there. April had none. May had two. Two checks did the heavy lifting for an entire region. And even with them, May was 18% below the same month a year early. Strip the two big ones out, and what you have is a pretty quiet sink. Now, this is not new, and that is the point. We saw the same shape in the first quarter. The region posted about $2.8 billion across 98 deals, the lowest deal count in at least 8 years. And a single data center raise, day one, was more than 70% of all that capital. I talked about that one a couple weeks back, so I will not relitigate that point. I just want you to notice the pattern, because once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The total goes up. The number of companies actually getting funded does not. We've got a large portion going into the data centers, the hardware, these mega deals, which is inflating the numbers. And here's why this matters to you. And it is not academic. If you are raising right now and you benchmark yourself against a headline, you will think capital is flowing and you are simply being passed over. But that is wrong lesson, and it will make you do desperate things. The right lesson is that the deal count, not the dollar total, is the more honest gauge. And the deal count says fewer companies, higher bar, slower checks. So if the aggregate number is a mirage, what is the real one? What is the number on a Southeast Asian cap table that does not lie? It is in the margin, which brings me to one of the positive stories in the region this month. And that is that local Malaysia company, Respond.io, this month raised $62.5 million Series B, led by Camber partners with Endeavor Catalyst and existing backers coming back in. That's coming off the rounds of them going into the international rounds of selection through the Endeavor network. Big round, but as nice as it is to see the success stories coming out of Malaysia, the round itself is not the story. The story is what was true before the round. $35 million in annual recurring revenue, growing over 100% per year based upon what they released, with a pretty decent profit margin. Now, read that again, because they were profitable. They went and raised growth money from a position where they did not strictly need it. And that is the exact opposite of the burn first, find the model later playbook. The last cycle rewarded and then punished. This bootstrapper mentality, even though they're raising, is still necessary. So couple of comments before I move on, just because I think it's an interesting one when a company is moving along. They run an AI agent powered customer messaging platform, global by nature. The thing that lets a business actually hold conversation and close a sale across platforms, channels where commerce in this region actually happens. Although they're in APAC, they're in Latin America. Misunderstanding. I think this money is actually to go west. They're processing billions of messages per quarter, 10,000 businesses plus, over 180 countries, really quite global. And the new money is going west, as I referenced, to grow into that North America and Europe, plus potentially some acquisitions from what the press release was saying. Now, so here is some of the contrast that defines this story. On one side, a regional funding total inflated by two mega deals. You would never meet the founders, most likely. And on the other, a profitable company quietly compounding at healthy margins, raising on its own terms, and going on the offense into the biggest markets of the world. If you take one thing from this, take this. Stop reading the league tables, read the profit and loss. In 2026, the only honest number on a Southeast Asia cap table is in the margin, because it is the one figure nobody can dress up with a single big check. We get lost in the aggregate oftentimes. And I think when you disaggregate it, you can find the more interesting story hidden beneath it. Now, let me complicate my own happy story, because I'm not here to necessarily wave the flag per se. I think there's more underlying here. This is one that is a little bit closer to home. You started a company to build a product, not to run a back office. But here you are. You pay an accounting firm every month, and once a year, you get a clean set of accounts. That is compliance. It's not clarity. It will not tell you if you run out of cash in March. It will not tell you what one new hire does to your runway. And it will not answer the question every investor asks: where's this business heading? So I built your CFO, your back office in a box. Your books keeps your accounting books current, and your CFO puts your forecast forward. In one login, your actuals flowing straight into your Outlook. Link your strategic initiatives, like a hire or a price change, to exactly what it does to your runway before you commit. Investor ready, operationally ready, in the currency that you work in. It is the back office I run across my own companies. Get your finances settled for your business today at yourcfo.tech. That's yourcfo.tech. To me, because I am proud of this one. KL should be as well, because here's something a small market does not say out loud often enough. But companies like this are exactly what you want as an emerging startup ecosystem. The founder is not Malaysian. The company was originally started not in Malaysia. It was brought here. And that should be a feature, not a footnote. A founder who could base anywhere chose to base in KL. That decision creates real things you can touch. You create engineering jobs, payroll that gets taxed, corporate tax, office leases, local vendors, lawyers, accountants, the cafe downstairs, the spending on behalf of the employees that are generating salaries from being involved in it, and a signal to the next founder weighing where they should land that says, people build serious companies here. That is a win. And I think Malaysia should bank the credit fully and without an asterisk. But here's the flip side of this same narrative. Because while I'm congratulating and celebrating, there is actually an asterisk to the story, because the timing is almost too on the nose. Because there are a number of issues that are coming into force that are leaning the other way, that are not necessarily creating that attractive magnetism and making it more difficult in order to inspire more entrepreneurs to come in order to inspire bringing in more talent. One is they're changing the salary floor on the employment pass, which has now jumped. The lifespans are changing. But to me, the biggest change in regards to, at least on the employment passes, because any of these startups, ultimately, they're going to be looking at bringing in additional talents in order to come in with them. Some of the existing teams that may end up being there will end. So I don't think that the narrative on the change in the salary requirement is necessarily the headline of it. I think the more challenging one from my perspective is that there is a requirement built into this that you must have a replacement plan in place for any of these foreign talents. And some of these plans are quite short. Now, it's been relatively scant in regards to finding somebody that can actually give me better insight in regards to what does this actually mean. But one person with what I presume is closer knowledge to the to the to the actual interpretation that is going to take place with this had told me that even if that person progresses in roles, the employment is with the company, not with the title or role. So if you're saying that you're going to bring in a foreign talent and they're filling in, say, a junior developer role, but then they end up progressing, doing very well, doesn't matter if they're increasing their title. What matters is that they're still there, and you have to replace them so that they are no longer still there. So if you think about it from a talent perspective, what highly talented individual is going to take a position knowing that there is a end clock on it? If they have family, children, will they make that move knowing there's an end clock that it's basically saying, we want you temporarily, but we don't want you here forever? I think that ends up posing more of a challenge in regards to bringing in talent. That's going to end up becoming one of the challenges in regards to attracting more of these types of success stories. Now, I understand the intent because we do need to do a better job of building local capability. Do not let park expats in seats forever. Fair enough. But here's the tension I cannot get past as an investor. You cannot run a come build your global company here pitch, and a here is your countdown timer. Please train your replacement policy at the same time. The open door version works. It works globally. There's a number of countries that we could point to and demonstrate it. And I think that the risk that Malaysia celebrates this win in the very quarter, it makes the next one harder to land. This is a competitive sport. The founders who will be choosing KL had other options because Singapore likely wanted him. Hong Kong wanted him. Tokyo wanted him. Bangkok wanted him. Manila wanted him. It's your best people to write their own succession plan on arrival. So this is the constructive note, not a complaint. If attracting mobile founders is how a small market punches above its weight, and it is, then the policy and the pitch have to point the same direction. Right now, for 1 month at least, they did not. That is the entry. Inflated headlines, an honest margin, and a home that has to decide whether it actually wants the people who create the margin. Now let us talk about the way out, the fork in the road, as I alluded to earlier. So, news story coming out is that when you think about it, every founder eventually asks the quiet question. If this works, how do I get out and where? Every investor is less quiet about that. In Southeast Asia, the answer used to be a shrug. And this month, 3 companies gave 3 different answers. And together they tell you more about this region than any funding tool, really. So if you start with Thailand, we've been waiting for more exit stories coming out of that market. And so Lineman Womne, the app more than 10 million Thais use for food, rides, payments. It is weighing an initial it is looking at are Hong Kong and New York, not Bangkok from the stories that I've read. And a decision is expected, at least based upon the reporting that was out there, a decision is expected by the end of this month. Maybe by the time this podcast actually releases, we'll already know. So I'll try and update that. But sit with that. The most used app in the country looked at its home exchange and decided it could not get a fair hearing there, citing the weak domestic conditions, political volatility. So it is shopping for a listing 8,000 kilometers away. This is the version of the story everyone expects from this region. Southeast Asia builds the company and then sends it abroad to be valued because the home market is too thin, too cautious, too distracted to carry it. A market that cannot list its own champions does not have a sentiment problem. It has a plumbing problem. Pipes that turn a great company into a liquid, public, locally owned outcome are just not built. We've talked about this in the past in other episodes that we don't have the avenues or actually the will in order to be able to fix what is wrong. If the whole region looked like this act would be a depressing one. But it does not necessarily, because in the same window, a different country gave the opposite answer. And here comes the Philippines. Now, not the it is a market where I am openly bullish on, and I will tell you exactly why in a second, but with the caveat attached, so you do not think that I am selling on the country or talking my own book. But the story is, because we're talking about more companies that are positioned for IPO, is that Mint, which is the parent company of GCash, the finance super app that tens of millions of Filipinos actually live inside, authorized the filing to go public. A registration with the regulator, a listing application with the Philippine Stock Exchange, an offer of about, I think it was 12% of the company, targeting the second half of this year, possibly fourth quarter. So we'll have to keep an eye out on that one. And it's shaping up to be the largest IPO in the history of that exchange. Local player, local exchange, to be determined how well that goes. But here's the part that matters. Mint is actually listing at home on the local exchange, not Hong Kong, not biggest fintech outcome the Philippines has produced is choosing to be a Philippine public company. And it's not alone, because Maya, the digital bank, is weighing its own listing, which is talking about a dual track on the local exchange plus NASDAQ after posting its first profitable year. 1 foot at home, 1 foot abroad, essentially a hedge. So, look at the fork honestly. Thailand's champion is leaving the list, but the Philippines has one champion committing to the home exchange outright, and another one essentially trying to hedge across both. That is not the region as a single sad story. That is the region essentially splitting in real time over the same question. Is it worth building a venue people want to stay for? And right now, this quarter, Philippines is the market making the bigger bet that the answer is yes. That you can stay and list on your domestic market. Now, the caveat, because I promised it, do not let anyone sell you Mint and Maya's scrappy startup miracle, because Mint is sitting behind Globe and the Ayala Group with Ant Group alongside of it. Maya sits behind PLDT. These are basically conglomerate and telco children going public, which, by the way, rhymes with something I said about the Vietnam story recently, where the tech giants raise and the startups starve. So hold both thoughts. The optimism is earned. A deep local public market is the single thing this region has always lacked. And the Philippines is genuinely building toward it. It's attempting it. But the homegrown founder fairy tale is not the right frame. Incumbents are listing. That is still good. It is just not the legend. And here's the constructive next move. The one I would actually want a Filipino policymaker or operator to hear. One record listing does not make a market. The test is the second one, and the third one, and the fourth one. Can the Philippine Stock Exchange turn Mint's debut into a habit so that the next great Filipino company does not even think about Hong Kong or the US? If it can, the Philippines stops being the market people underrate and could become the market with the exit that nobody else in the region actually has. That would be a pretty interesting differentiator. that could stand them apart. So let me bring these two acts together because they are the same lesson from two ends of a company's life. When you raise, the headline lies. It is inflated by a handful of checks you will never be part of. And the only number that tells you the truth is your own margin. So build like respond. Get to profit and let profit, not a press release, be the thing that earns you around. When you leave, the region forks. One country will send you abroad to be valued. Another is trying right now to build a house worth staying in. So do not assume your exit. Choose it on purpose, the way you would choose a co-founder. And in between those two moments sits the thing I keep coming back to. The capital around a Southeast Asian founder, the private money coming in, and the public money you eventually want out and exit through is unreliable and uneven. That is not a reason to be cynical. It is a reason to be precise. Read the honest number, pick the real venue, and not build your company on top of someone else's headline. One last thing, and it is the through line of this entire show. The markets that win the next decade out here will be the ones that both attract the people who create the margin and build the place those people can cash out at home. This month, one company showed us the margin. One country showed us the door, both opening it and starting to close it. And one country started building a room worth staying in. Be the reason the money stops sitting still. That's the episode for today. I'm Kevin. This was Sea of Startups. Real, raw, relatable. And that does it for this episode of Sea of Startups. If you've enjoyed what you've been listening to, please give it a like, give it a review, subscribe to our channel. A little bit of feedback goes a long way in allowing us to keep on putting out these kind of episodes.